playoff spot with Team USA losing to Madison. I would have rather waited for us to get another win and then beat Madison, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the magic number, as far as getting a playoff spot, that's done and over with. Now we're looking at the next magic number, which actually isn't too far away at this point. The magic number we're talking about now is the Phantoms having home ice advantage. At least right now for the first round, if that ends up being the case, that magic number right now is at 3. That is going off of, and again, it's the same concept we talked about in the Q&A last week. Right now, we're looking at Green Bay. Currently, Green Bay has 53 points, 9 games remaining. So Green Bay's max possible number of points is 71. Youngstown currently at 69. So not factoring in tiebreakers or anything else like that, which honestly is something you kind of do the last weekend of the season, is really the only time you want to start factoring in tiebreakers. So yeah, that magic number is 3. So 3 more points by Youngstown, either by them getting those points or Green Bay losing points by not gaining them in the next couple games. Will at least lock up home ice advantage for Youngstown in the first round. And then after that, we'll be looking at what it would take as far as the second round, and as tight as it is at the top of the Eastern Conference right now, that might come down to the very last weekend of the season.
I think we wanted to get more points this weekend. Unfortunately, that's just how it goes. But I like the way our schedule looks going forward. So
yes.
I think that's one of the things we really have to look forward to, is we have a really good schedule going forward.
And in case this gets brought up anymore in the episode, I will preface it with, we're not making predictions based on the Phantoms' remaining schedule. These games still have to be played. You still have to look at it as one game at a time. But just kind of on paper, if you look at our record versus the records of opponents, head-to-head matchups this season, everything else like that, you can say the remainder of the Phantom schedule is favorable to the Phantoms, but these games still have to be played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they control their own destiny at this point still.
And if you look at the game on Saturday, which based on the game on Friday, you would expect more of the same on Saturday. All it takes is one bad start to a game, and it flips everything on its head. Here in the past week, we've gotten news of some awards won by some notable Phantoms alumni. Of course, starting out, Jacob Fowler picking up the Hockey East Goaltender of the Year. This is the second year in a row he has won this award. I asked him, because he said before, usually these awards get shipped to his home in Florida. I asked him if somebody was at least keeping things tidy down there, or he wouldn't be able to get in there the next time he visits all these awards going down there. He said he doesn't care. Keep filling that room up.
Yeah. Winner of the Hockey East Goaltender of the Year, again.
Yeah.
To nobody's surprise.
No.
Trey Taylor picking up all ECAC first team honors. We talked a lot about Trey's one season in Youngstown. At the end of that year, he ended up on the all USHL third team. And to put that as eloquently as I can, that was a crock.
What was that crock full of, Sam?
It was full of something. I'll tell you what.
Manure.
Trying to be classy. This is a classy show, guys. Come on.
You're right. Sorry.
But yeah, so named ECAC all first team as a defenseman. Congratulations to Trey. And Chase Patilla being named the CCHA Defensive Defenseman of the Year. So basically what this means is we had Chase on the show about a month and a half too early. I feel like we could have had so much more to talk to him about if we would have just waited a month and a half. It's been a good here, little over a week to be Chase Patilla.
Yeah. I mean, kudos to him. I mean, nobody deserves it more.
Boy, did we jump the gun on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep him rolling in.
But he did tell me he'd be more than happy to come on here at any time. So I'm going to wait just in case he saves like a bunch of kids from a burning school bus or something like that. I feel like that's going to be coming up in about a week or so. So we'll see what happens there. All right. So as we've been doing here for the past so many weeks, we have decided to create a new reason for us to rag on each other when we're not recording. So these little quiz games we've been playing. So of course, this is round 3 of our lineup quiz. We may have to do one more after this based on who wins today to declare a winner.
I haven't won one of these yet, so I don't think you have to worry.
If Dan wins this one, he wins it outright. If I win, or wait, who's asking the question? No, Dan, you're not even asking this week.
Yeah, you guys can get points this week.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, no matter what, we're going to have to do this one more time. But this is the Phantoms lineup quiz. This will consist of Dan giving me and Justin a Phantoms lineup from sometime in their history. And this lineup will be from a notable game in Phantoms history. So 1 point if you can guess what season this lineup is from, and a point if you can guess what the notable event was. So I believe currently the standings are Dan with 2 points and me with 1. So Dan, whenever you're ready.
All right, so I'm going to give you the lineup a little bit differently to make it a little bit more interesting. So starting out would be Andrew Centrella, Winter Wallace, TJ Swigard,
22, 21?
Yes. Now, this game was in March. I can maybe give you a little bit better, but they played Green Bay at home, and it was the first time something happened for this particular player who ended up being a legend for the team. March 12th.
March 12th.
First time this player achieved this stat in a game. And it's we'll go a little bit further. It's the position that I did not name.
So it's a goalie.
Yep.
So it was the first time this goalie did it, or the first time it happened in team history?
First time this goalie did it.
Oh, good. That's not the... See, I think you went past the spirit of this here, but...
First of many. I think it's because of the player that it was.
So 21-22, that would have been...
Fowler's first shutout?
That's it right there.
All right, I'm out of it.
That was Jacob Fowler's first.
Wow.
Now, see, I'm gonna cry foul here because that was not a team significant event. That was a player significant event, but
Sam, cry Fowler. Okay.
I'm gonna take the L on this one, but it's gonna be in protest. I'm gonna cry Fowler on it, and I'm gonna remind you that you two are going head to head into next week, and I'm coming up with the lineup in the event.
Okay.
So
be afraid. Be very afraid.
Gloves are off now.
Wow. I don't know if I should be happy about that or.
I can imagine what the event's going to be.
If you end up not being happy about it, you can blame Dan. All right. So coming up in this episode, we will be previewing the Phantoms 2 games in Kearney, Nebraska with the Tri-City Storm. This week's edition of Fan Q&A. And for this week's version of Phantom Files, we are welcoming back to the show Phantoms co-general manager Jason Deskins. So with that, we're going to step aside for a quick minute. On the other side, we're kicking this off with the weekend recap. So keep it here with the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
This is Voice of the Phantoms and friend of the show, Matt Lipsack, and you are listening to the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
Welcome back to the Dump and Chase podcast on the home of the Youngstown Phantoms, Western Reserve Radio. So this past weekend for the Phantoms, kicking off a 4-game road trip through the more northern and western parts of the United States Hockey League, starting out with 2 games in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So the game on Friday, a 5-0 win for the Phantoms. You love to see it, first of all. Melvin Strahl gets another shutout, I believe his 3rd of the season. And, a game that was, highly touted as Youngstown, depending on the week, either 2nd, 3rd, or 4th place in the Eastern Conference. And Sioux Falls sitting at 2nd place in the Western Conference. This was being billed as a big time matchup between these two teams, and save for kind of just a back and forth feeling out first period, Youngstown ran away with it.
Yeah.
What, it was 3-0 in the third period. What was the time on the clock when Sioux Falls pulled their goaltender?
8 minutes left.
Yeah.
8 minutes left.
8 minutes left. Youngstown picks up 2 empty net goals and then almost scored another one after that.
Mm-hmm.
Which would have been one of those odd stat lines that their 6th goal of the game came after 2 empty net goals.
Yeah. I wonder how many empty net shorthanded goals you score like in a season. Like Luke Osborne did that on the 5th goal.
But yeah, just kind of, I mean, top to bottom, I mean, just overall a great game by the Phantoms. Again, Melvin Strahl, stood out in net, and we talked to him last week as far as facing a lot of shots versus only facing a few, faced 31 in this game. And definitely, once you really started getting into the second period, Sioux Falls had 12 shots on goal in that period. You could really see Strahl getting into a rhythm and basically, and essentially carried that to the rest of the, through the rest of the game. I mean, Sioux Falls did have some grade A chances, and he was making it look easy.
Yeah, they definitely had quality chances, and I mean, so did we, and we were the one who actually capitalized that night.
Yeah, I think what Strahl did best in the game, because, I can't think of a game this year that Youngstown was outshot in all 3 periods like they were in this game. Not that it really stood out, made a big difference in the game, but I think his rebound control was phenomenal because Sioux Falls was putting pucks on net. And I think the defense in front of him was they were wearing a lot of pucks as well. Coming into this game, we knew that Sioux Falls was a big physical team, and there was 13 penalties in this game, 13 power plays, I should say. And I don't know if they're not used to playing, because I think Sioux Falls, when they play a game, I think they're used to just being like the baddest man on the ice, for lack of a better way of saying it. And I think they tried playing that game against the Phantoms, and the Phantoms play that game better than anybody else. And it was a little chess match going back and forth as far as what you could do after the whistle. I know there's 13 penalties called. I would say a couple of them were a little bit iffy going on, but I think when a game gets like that, a little physical, a little bit extra going on after the play, I really think that falls more to Youngstown's. I think that gets them in the game better than most teams do.
And to add to what Dan said, I don't think there's a team in the West who is more like the Phantoms than Sioux Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very similar styles of play, and I think that showed this weekend.
Yeah, and something else that really stood out. We've been talking about 2 things that the Phantoms coming in this weekend have been kind of lacking on, and that was their power play and their face-offs. And the Phantoms won a lot of face-offs in this game, and they the Phantoms penalty kill in this game completely shut down Sioux Falls. It was very odd to kind of have the shoe on the other foot this time and seeing somebody else struggling more mightily than what we're used to seeing. So I would say that's the most face-offs the Phantoms ever won in a game, memory-wise.
Since you brought up special teams, the Phantoms penalty kill this weekend. I mean, overall, Sioux Falls only going 1 for 13.
Yeah.
On the power play. And the vast majority of, how many times do you really remember on a lot of these power plays? Sioux Falls even able to get set up.
They could not.
It was just dump it in. Maybe they get it, maybe scrap around, get a shot on goal, and the puck's going back the other way.
Yeah,
how many times do you really remember, them really getting set up, running the cycle, and everything else? It was very rare if it did happen.
And if they did, it was mostly around the perimeter.
Yeah. Yeah. The shots from the perimeter, unless you're Youngstown, those aren't going in.
Right.
Alluding to the game on Saturday.
Yeah. One thing that really, really surprised me in this game was that second goal that Jakob Hesch tipped in from Jack Wilson. Wilson got that puck on his stick and just threw it at the net. And, Hesch was just going to the net. I think he picked up his head maybe a half second for that puck on him. And I think, stat-wise, it doesn't look like Jakob really contributes a whole lot stat-wise, but that kid is a damn good player. He's smart. And that's a thing I've never seen him do before, get in front of the net like that and poke that, tip that down. That was a heck of a play.
Okay, thank you for unintentionally correcting me there. That was the goal I was referring to. I had it in my head it was Saturday, but that was the goal I was referring to there. Yeah. Thank you for correcting me, even though you didn't mean to.
You're welcome, I think.
But yeah, Michael Messick, it's just, we talked about, how many weeks ago did we say, we feel like we don't talk about him enough.
Mm-hmm.
It is fully transitioned into him. It almost feels like I feel like we're talking about him more than anybody else.
Nobody has been filling the stat sheet more so than him.
Yeah.
As of late.
It's just week in, week out, this kid is just producing.
And when you're playing well, you feel like you have a little bit of puck luck, or you find yourself in the right spot quite often.
Yeah.
And that's no more evident than his second goal of the game in the third period, where Banach made a heck of a play. I think he beat like three Sioux Falls players down the ice and just dropped it off.
Yeah, along the boards.
Yeah.
That ended with him like muscling through two guys on the boards.
Yeah.
To get that pass to Messick out front.
To a wide open Messick. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. That was just like, you felt bad for Aiden Wright right there. Not really, but yeah, it was, he's really been coming on fire at the right time of the season. For sure.
Yeah. Okay. So the game on Saturday, this game was kind of a mixed bag emotionally. The Phantoms ended up losing this game 3-2, but I believe it was about 2-3 minutes left in the game when the final between Madison and USA happened, and so it was like we clinched the playoffs, but we're going to lose this game. It was kind of like mixed feelings. I mean, I kind of think for a lot of people, I think more people were celebrating the playoff act than kind of mourning the loss in this one. So I think just that happening kind of blunted everything that happened here.
Well, I mean, it was still close at that point. I mean, we held out hope.
But yeah, like we talked about, it's you look at games that you think Youngstown should win on paper. It tilts towards that Youngstown should win these games. But again, we talk about these games have to be played, and this is where not even a bad first period, just kind of a bad first half to a period. Was really all it took for Youngstown to dig a hole that it couldn't get out of.
Yeah.
And just something that's been an oddity this season. It's only the second time this season we've seen this with Ryan Ward pulling a goaltender mid game. This is only the second time this season that happened. But after Sioux Falls' third goal there towards the end of the first period, Ward goes ahead and pulls Melvin Strahl. Had a hell of a game the night before, just wasn't his game, just wasn't his night on Saturday night. And then bringing in Owen Leapak, not even waiting for the period to end, just going ahead and making the move there with about 2.5 minutes left.
We were still, it was on a 5-on-3 power play.
Yes.
And there was still power play time. So he's putting him in cold on the penalty kill. Yeah.
3.5 minutes left in the first period. But I mean, when it's all said and done, hats off to Owen Leapak.
I mean, hell of a game.
Played a heck of a game in relief there. And quite honestly, down the stretch, if that scenario is going to come up, that's what you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud Ward's decision making. At the moment, I was like, ooh, okay. But
yeah, when you get pulled like that, I think making the change you guys talked about before the first period was over instead of at intermission, I think that sends a little bit different of a message. And yeah, sometimes you just don't have it. These players aren't professional, and Melvin didn't have it that day. And I think when you get pulled like that, it's not only you're looking like to give your team a jolt, but I also think you're looking for damage control. So I don't think you would really want to put too much behind Strahl where you kind of lose confidence in what he's doing. I think that's, and you know what, and if that's going to happen and your backup goalie comes in and steps in like that, what a weapon to have.
Yeah.
If the shoe goes on the other foot, that's a great thing as well.
And I mean, it's as much as a wake up call to the rest of the team.
You can't pin all three of those goals. You can't pin them on Strahl for certain. I'm sure that third one he wants back.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature. Yeah. I mean, the nature of the game. So,
and at the end of the day, you look at Strahl's body of work over the past few months. You know what? If he's going to have an off day, I'd rather it happen now than a month from now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that game is going to come, I'd rather it be now than later.
And these things are going to happen no matter what. And make the change and have the effect that the change did on the team. That just shows that decisions that were made were correct.
Yeah. Another point in this game, hate to see it. Aiden Wright going down there in the third period. Early in the third period. I hate to see it. I haven't heard anything. I hope he's okay. Judging by the way it was a non-contact. When he went down, there wasn't any contact there. But yeah, just kind of the way he went down, you can make assumptions and you kind of want to go towards the worst, but it didn't look pretty and he had a lot of trouble getting off that ice.
Yeah.
And something else, we haven't really talked about this lately, but it seems like all the other teams' broadcasters talk about it. and that's penalties taken from the fans. This whole weekend, I think they took 11 penalties. I want to say overall 12. I'm sorry, 12. And I understand sometimes you're going to get called for penalties, but there was a lot of things that were just needless penalties, and those are things that the team has pretty much eliminated for like the past 2 months or so. I think it just brought up the nature of the game, the physicality of the game, and I think what the game meant as well. And the last thing I'll say about this game too is I really like Sioux Falls is they got a really nice barn they play in. They got to put on a really nice production as well. The only thing I hated about the production was I appreciate the effort of showing replays during a game because that's not something we get to see all the time. But why would they show replays while the game's still going on live?
Oh my gosh.
That was so irritating. At least the play-by-play guy was still talking, was still calling the game.
Who called a really good game except for some really bad mispronunciations of names.
Yeah. We did get to see something fun there when the Phantoms were down 5-on-3. Justin Kerr goes in for the face-off, was kicked out of the face-off circle. So you're on a 5-on-3. You have a forward and 2 defensemen. Cal Houston, the mayor of Youngstown, got to come in and take the draw.
Mm-hmm.
Not too often you see defensemen take draws.
And for good reason.
He didn't lose it cleanly.
Looked a little awkward on that one. I did reach out to him and ask him when the last time he had taken a face-off was. He said he thinks it was 16U.
I wonder what the situation was that he took a face-off at 16U. That's always a strange turn of events that must happen for that something like that to occur.
Saw that and it was like, oh, we're gonna have a little bit of fun with that on the show. Talking to him, had a little bit of fun with it, but he took it all in good humor. So
he tried.
Okay, so now it is time for the Dump and Chase podcast 3 stars of the week. So kicking it off with the 3rd star.
And our 3rd star will be Adam Bannock. He had a goal and 3 assists on the weekend.
At least that's what it is right now. For some reason, these stats have been changing. Every time we record, the stats change 3 times before the episode comes out. So that's what, as of recording, 1 goal and 3 assists for Adam Bannock. The 2nd star of the week is Melvin Strahl, again, stopping all 31 shots he faced on Friday for his 3rd shutout of the season.
And for the 2nd week in a row, the 1st star, Michael Messick, 2 goals, 1 assist.
All right, and that will do it for 3 stars and the weekend recap. So coming up after a short break, we sit down with co-general manager Jason Deskins for this week's edition of Phantom Files. That's next here with the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
We're back with the Dump and Chase podcast on the home of Phantoms Hockey, Western Reserve Radio. For this week's edition of Phantom Files, we are welcoming back one of my favorite human beings on this big blue rock. He, along with Ryan Kosecki, are the duo that has been filling up this Phantoms roster with incredibly talented players the past 4 seasons. All 4 of which now, as of this last weekend, have led to playoff berths. So we welcome back Phantoms co-general manager Jason Deskins. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Now, I want to say right off the bat, I know you well enough. You're not somebody who wants to be put on that pedestal and you like to work in the background. You don't want the adulation and everything else. But first off the bat, because we haven't talked to you on here since main camp, but you were a massive help to us this last year at main camp, probably the smoothest time we've ever had as far as getting interviews and everything else. You were a big part of that. We definitely wanted to thank you for that. And then, of course, like all through this season, helping us like setting up player interviews and everything else, again, kind of really smoothing out the process for us. So I know you're not somebody who typically likes this kind of stuff, but I did right off the bat want to say thank you for all the help you've given us this past season.
Oh, you're welcome. We're welcome. Happy to help any way I can. You guys do a great job getting the word out for us, and that benefits obviously our organization and our players, and hopefully we can continue to get the word out. So we appreciate it.
So, the trade deadline passes here. Actually, now by the time we're recording, almost a month ago. You have your sons playing in tournaments right now. You have draft prep going on. About how much sleep are you getting a night?
I'm getting plenty of sleep. I can tell you that 4 years ago, I didn't sleep much. And the guys would get random text messages at 3:00 in the morning or 4:00 in the morning with players' names from all over the world that I was watching video on or scouting. That's happening less and less. And I have a better grasp of the hockey world now. So I think it makes it a little easier on me and my wife getting to bed.
I wish Dan would adhere to that.
That's fun.
4:00 in the morning, and it's a link to an elite prospects page from some random kid in upstate Minnesota.
Oh yeah. We have a group text with our scouts and one with our GM body. And I always they laugh because they make fun of me for two reasons. One, the middle of the night text messages that come through with 50 different players. And then my tabs on my computer on Instat will be open, and I'll have 150 tabs up with all the players I'm watching on a day-to-day basis.
Your computer is melting down.
Yeah. So they're always making fun of me about that. So it's got a little bit better over the years as I've gotten more comfortable, but I'm still a bit of a psycho. So they have to deal with it. It is what it is.
At least according from what we've heard, Coach Ward must be up about the same time as that person has.
I will tell you, Coach Ward and I are probably the only two people on the planet that could send a text at 3:30 in the morning and get a response within a minute.
So this past weekend, the last weekend here, the Phantoms were at the Cavelli Center. We got to see you there. We got to see Timmy Parkos, Jeff Cox. You guys kind of had this like all hands on deck thing. With kind of these planning meetings and everything. So like right now, the draft is about 6 weeks away at this point. Like, where are you guys like at in the draft process right now?
Yeah, we spent this past weekend just kind of putting together our phase 1 and phase 2 lists and starting to rank some players out. And we're at a point now where we're going through like a vetting process, talking with agents, colleges, players, European agents, advisors, just trying to gather information and intel on players for the most part. We have the NCDP camp here this week that we'll be at scouting as well and evaluating. Just trying to learn more about the kids, what their intentions are, what they're like, what drives them, what gets them going every single day. And then getting information from their coaches, because in the end, those are the guys that know them the best. They're with them every single day. They live it with them. They experience the highs and the lows throughout a season, which, guys that sit in the stands watching hockey don't see. And those things are very important to us. So we're kind of at this, intel phase, I guess, where we're trying to learn as much as we possibly can about every player that's on our list.
Now, here, like a few years back, we had you on the show, and if you can believe it or not, we actually have like a whole bunch of new listeners since that point. You're a dad like me and Dan is, so you love repeating yourself. And you had talked about a few years back when you were on the show, you had talked about, because when we talk, phase 1, you're drafting for the future. Phase 2, you're drafting for now, couple, maybe exceptions here and there. You had talked about before about like when you're evaluating these players about checking the 3 boxes. Can you kind of like, again, I'm asking you to do this again, but 3 years later, could you kind of explain this concept when you're going through and looking at these guys?
Yeah, I think, and listen, like I try to adapt and evolve day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. I would tell you that pretty steadfast in my beliefs, but at the same time, we've tweaked some things over the years in terms of, what we do and how we evaluate and what we're looking for. One of the things now that's literally the first thing that we have our scouts find out is do they check the box of, are they a Phantom? And that is the most important question we can ask about any player that'll ever play in Youngstown. The reality is we live in a world today that is very, very different than even 5 years ago. And it's surely different than, 30, 35, 40 years ago when I grew up playing, and kids have a lot of options. They have lots of choices. They have lots of people in their ear, many who, to be honest, probably shouldn't be in their ear, but they have a lot of people that are giving them information on a day-to-day basis. The impact of social media and what comes with that provides a very fluid environment, for players. And when we ask is he a phantom? It basically entails like, what is this kid about? Like, what makes this kid? What drives this kid? What does he do when he wakes up every single day to be the best version of himself? And is this a kid that's loyal? Is this a kid that is going to outwork people? Is this a kid that's entitled? Is this a kid that has had to earn everything he's gotten along the way? And to us, that's very, very, very important now. And we've learned that through guys like Chase Patilla, Colson Hanrahan, that have come through this program, and they've earned every single thing that they've gotten without ever griping, complaining, asking for more, questioning why they're not getting more. They just work and they just earn it, and they just find a way to get themselves the minutes that they want and the ice time they want and the opportunity they want. And if we could have 25 of those every year, that would be great. So we always want to be skilled. We want to be talented, but not at the expense of having the wrong mindset surrounding our locker room or our program with kids that are expecting things or entitled or think they're entitled to things. So that's the very first thing that we're focusing on now. Then we start looking more at the hockey IQ piece, like we've talked about in the past. Like, we want to have smart players. I think when you look at this year's team in particular, probably the collectively the smartest team that we've had here in my 4 years. I think that shows that the process we've put together is working, because it makes sense. When you look at it and you see a group of kids that collectively are smart and intelligent, obviously you're acquiring those kids through the draft and through free agency. So it means you're hitting your boxes accordingly, which is good. We always look at stick skill and ability to make plays, which again, I think you look at this year's team, we have a ton of kids who can make plays in small areas and offensively can generate even in situations where they might not have a ton of time and space, which is huge. And then, compete level, right? Are they willing to compete? Are they willing to give second, third, fourth efforts? Are they savages? And I think that's one thing as well that, for us, that goes into like, are they a phantom, right? Like, if you have a kid that you can say, you leave the rink and you say, yeah, that kid's a savage, he should be playing in Youngstown. Because those are the kids that thrive and do well here, especially with the way we play, the passion we have as an organization, the pushback we have as an organization. All those things are extremely important to us, and kids that have a little bit of grit and sandpaper to them tend to do really, really well in Youngstown.
Yeah, talking about your first boxes, are you a Youngstown Phantom? I know you just talked about Captain Colson Hanrahan. I think he was the last pick for the Phantoms in the 2023 Phase 2 draft. I don't think there's a lot of players that are Youngstown Phantom-esque players, but I don't think there's one that really embodies this town more so than him. And I think it really just shows that the coaching staff in the front office really has a pulse on what makes this city tick by making him the captain. I think everyone loves him. They get behind him. And I think that's he embodies what you just said right there. He's the first person I thought of when you said that.
Yeah, and the best part about Colson, and I don't think many people know this, like, we drafted Colson in Phase 2. We got a great recommendation from Mike Marcoux, who coaches one of our NCDC teams in PAL in Long Island, PAL. And we drafted him that year. He came to our camp and we actually dropped his rights. So we actually put him back into the free agent market. The following season, probably in January or so, I went out and part of what Ryan Kosecki and I do is we'll travel and we'll stop into our youth programs and work with the players and meet the families and work with our coaches in those programs. So I stopped in and I actually hopped on the ice with Mike, and got to know Colson a little bit better, and actually spent, a few hours with the team and really, dug into Colson. And it was, again, it was a very casual visit that literally I left, and I remember hopping in my car and first thing I did is I called Ryan Ward and Ryan Kosecki and, just said, hey, like, I think we're missing something on this kid right now. Like, everything that we, view as important is something that this kid brings every single day. And I saw it very quickly on the ice, and not just as a kid and as a person, as a teammate, but he's ultra talented, and people don't give him enough credit. Like, I don't think there are enough people who understand that there aren't many kids that can do what he's done and walk into a league that's one of the best leagues in the world, at this level, and not only make an impact defensively and physically and in the locker room, but also on the score sheet. So Colson is the epitome of that. He's earned everything he's ever been given, and he is the definition of what a Phantom player would look like.
Now, I mean, and you know, we've never said, you know, that we're any bit of hockey experts in any way, shape, or form. We just pretend to be ones on this show. So I want to ask you, who is a player on the roster this year that, like, we or really anyone else you feel like hasn't been talked about enough this season? Like, who is that guy you feel like has kind of flown under the radar who shouldn't be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we have so many guys to be candid. I mean, Justin Kerr for me is a guy that he hasn't played a ton of games with injury and suspension, but he just does everything for us. I mean, he can play center, he can play right, he can play left. He insulates players that, you know, needed time to grow and acclimate to our team and our league. And he wins draws. He can play on the penalty kill. He can play net for on the power play. He's got a great motor. I mean, he's been phenomenal for us. And honestly, I don't know where our team would be if we didn't have Justin Kerr here. I think he's a spectacular player. The other kid that I think over the past 8 weeks or so here that has been unbelievable. And I think it took him a little bit this year to kind of figure things out in terms of what his role is and how he was going to embrace that role. But Brecken Smith has really taken a big time step in the last 8 weeks or so. And has found a way to make an impact on our team in a lot of different ways and solidify our lineup. And our other kid who can play multiple positions and play in different situations, and he's embraced those situations in that role. And our team is in my opinion, taken a major step since he's, you know, really found a way to identify with what he is and how he can help our team. And Brecken's doing a fabulous job. All
right. So the last question for this bit here. Ohio State, Michigan State in the Big Ten finals. Who do you got?
No comment. I have lots of friends at both places, and honestly, players that I've coached and managed, and you know, from Nathan Lewis and obviously Roz and the group of coaches at Ohio State, and then some of our guys like Rue who are going to be heading there in the future. And, you know, guys like Trey Augustine, you know, at Michigan State and others. And I have a great relationship with their staff as well. So, I'm hoping it's a great game. I'm hoping that it goes to overtime and that somebody wins by 1 goal. And whatever team it is, I'm going to be extremely happy for. And the other one, I'm going to be extremely sad for.
That was very political of you there. That was very diplomatic of you.
Yeah.
All right. So here is what we're doing for the listeners. There will be a part 2 to this interview that will be available to those of you listening on Apple, on Spotify, whichever podcast app you use. So for those of you that are listening on Western Reserve Radio right now, we encourage you to hop over after this is over and check out that. So Jason, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll catch you in part 2 on the podcast version. So for our Western Reserve Radio listeners, after this break, we will be back with the weekend preview and fan Q&A. So keep it here with the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Catch all of the spring and summer action of Cleveland Cobras minor league football on Western Reserve Radio. Follow the Cobras as they compete against teams from around the region in pursuit of a Tri-Point Football League championship. And if you're looking to continue your football career after high school, college, or even the pros, or to be part of the Cobras staff, go to Facebook at Cleveland Cobras Football or contact owner Jesse Caldwell at 330-416-3442. Be a part of the excitement of Cleveland Cobras football.
This is Voice of the Phantoms and friend of the show, Matt Lipsack, and you are listening to the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
This is the Dump and Chase podcast on the broadcast home of the Youngstown Phantoms, Western Reserve Radio. So the Phantoms will be continuing their trip through the Western Conference, still in the midst of this 7-game stretch here towards the end of the season with all Western Conference opponents, still 3 more after this series. Youngstown heading out to Kearney, Nebraska for 2 games with the Tri-City Storm. These teams met 3 times last season, with the Phantoms losing at the Fall Classic and then sweeping the 2 games at Cavelli Center when Tri-City came to visit. So Tri-City last weekend played a Tuesday game, beating Omaha 7-1, and then their game on Friday, losing to Cedar Rapids 6-2. So coming into this weekend, Tri-City with a record of 25, 24, 3-1. That gives them 54 points and 6th place in the Western Conference, holding on to that last playoff spot. So we're going to do something a little different than we typically do. Instead of giving the season stats, we're going to focus more on the last 10 games. So Tri-City in the last 10 games with a record of 6-3-1. In their last 10 games, they are averaging 3.4 goals per game. They are giving up 3.1 goals per game. Their power play sitting at 8.8%. The penalty kill at 67.6%. So in comparison, Youngstown coming into the weekend with a record of 34, 18-1, giving them 69 points. And thanks to Madison, currently 4th in the Eastern Conference with only 1 point separating the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place team in the East. So I have a feel like we're just going to be bouncing all over the place these last few weeks. Youngstown with a record of 7-3 in their last 10. And over their last 10 games, Youngstown averaging 3.3 goals per game, only giving up 1.8 goals per game. Youngstown's power play at 16.7% and the penalty kill at 72.5%.
Tri-City comes in. This is going to be an interesting matchup. I can't quite wrap my finger around them. Because Tri-City has some players on their team that can put the puck in the back of the net. They got Nolan Roed, they got Artemi Netzemeyev, and they got Carmelo Crandell. And they also picked up a player named Attila Lepai, I think is how you pronounce his name. Those 4 players there, they can put the puck in the back of the net. But what Tri-City lacks is depth. They do not have depth on their other lines. They have 2 lines that are pretty decent, and the other 2 lines that just can't get the job done. And that's why they win one night 7-1, lose the next night 6-2. Is a lack of depth. And I also think that Tri-City's goalies, they are, if you look at the goalie stats I think they've cycled through more goalies than any other team in the league. I think they're like cycling through 3 right now. But they commit penalties. They're not very good at killing them off, and they have not had a very good power play as of late. But one thing I will say is that they're hanging on to the 6th place spot, so the last place in the playoffs. So I think they got like an 8-point lead over Des Moines, who's in 7th place. So these points are very, very important to them, just as they're important to the fans, but they have a little bit more, they need to make the playoffs, and they're going to really try to hold on and get what they can.
Yeah, and like Sam is fond of saying, these games aren't played yet. Mm-hmm. I mean, on paper, you look at the Phantoms that they get, they have a pretty good advantage coming into this weekend, but they have to bring their A game. I think this weekend will come down to, I think what Dan was trying to say, who's hungrier here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dan, you have a pretty impressive streak about talking about players from the opposing team who end up not playing that weekend. So which of those players that you mentioned are you trying to designate to the scratch list?
Hopefully all of them.
Nolan Roed. Yeah, for sure.
Nothing major, no horrible injuries, just really good colds, something like that. But you have a pretty good streak going here of talking about these guys, and then they end up on the scratch report for these games. So here's to that trend continuing.
Yeah.
So these games, Friday and Saturday. Friday, that is an 8:05 puck drop. That is local time here. And on Saturday, that is a 7:05 puck drop. Again, that is local time. The games will be available on Flow Sports. And as always, keep an eye out on Phantom social media for information about watch parties taking place at Kensington Golf Club at the golf simulators. So at that point, now it's time for fan Q&A. So kicking it off, got a few questions here. The first question, what is your advice for starting a podcast, not necessarily a sports one? I'd say don't do it. No. And I do want to be sincere about this when I say this. If you're going to, whatever it is you're going to do a podcast about, do something that you're passionate about. I think a trap a lot of people fall into is they kind of see a category that's popular and say, I want to get in on it. And not only is that market, if it's popular, that market's flooded. You know what I mean? It's a copycat culture. Somebody does something that works, 1,000 other people all try to do the exact same thing. Like look through any shorts on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. You see one person doing it, then you see 1,000 people all doing the exact same thing. You know, find something that, you know, that you're passionate about, that you want to talk about. If it's a daily podcast, day after day, if it's a weekly podcast, week after week, you know, you don't have to be an expert in what it is you're talking about. And we are living proof of that. Over the years we've done this show, we are not experts. But at the, you know, if you're not an expert, you know, be willing to learn.
That was one thing I wanted to say.
Yeah, be willing to learn, be willing to research, you know, be willing to try to put the best information forward. Again, something all of us would be advice we would all be wise to follow sometimes. But no, I mean, as long as, I mean, if you're doing something you don't want to do just because you think it's popular right now, you see it like the true crime podcast. There's so many of them. You know what I mean? For every one popular one, there's going to be 100 of them, 1,000 of them that aren't popular that nobody listens to. You know what I mean? And that's going to be the difference between you doing a few episodes and you doing, you know, 50 episodes or 100 episodes. Talk about what you want to talk about. You know, don't worry about what's popular. Talk about what you love, what you're passionate about. And, you know, to me, that's a mistake a lot of people make. And at the same time, you got to be willing to dedicate the time to it as well. We joke about it all the time. We waste a ridiculous amount of our lives on this.
You more so than any of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, you know, but like I said, it's the sport of hockey, the Youngstown Phantoms. This is something we're all passionate about. This is something, you know, me and Justin, we're coming up on 200 episodes. We're coming up on 6 years here at the end of the month. If we weren't passionate about this, if this isn't something we wanted to talk about, we wouldn't be doing this show anymore.
And we've gone through stretches where, I mean, we get tired.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially if you're doing this with more than one person, and thank God now we have 3, so there's a bit more of a balance. But I mean, you know, you just have to, you know, go with it.
I think you also have to be open, like you said, to learn. I know Justin doesn't do this, but I listen to everything we put on, whatever podcast on, I listen to it. And it's weird hearing your voice playing back to yourself, but it's even better like to hear it. And I misspeak a lot, and I don't know, I really don't even realize I do it until I go back and listen to it. And I realize I said something, or I learned from what I said. I just bang my head against whatever steel beam that's closest to me at work when I hear the dumb stuff that I say that sound good in when I say it. Then I listen to it back. I'm like, wow, I'm an idiot. But I think secondly, as a connoisseur of podcast, I really think that you don't need to go out and spend a ton of money.
No.
But I think you need to have a microphone that doesn't sound like you're talking on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't use your webcam or your earbuds.
Yeah. Just invest a little bit in it. You know, it doesn't need to be a ton of money, but I think that's something you need to invest in.
And what Sam didn't go into, which is what me and Dan see every day from him, you have to, you know, kind of plan things out. Don't just, you know, start recording. He gives us a run sheet. He has his own personal notes on it. And we both kind of go off of that.
Well, now that Justin gave our secrets away here.
Yeah. Well, we've given out autographed run sheets as prizes.
Yeah.
I don't know why people would want that, but they do.
I'll put a button on this by saying also at the same time, understand that in the beginning, you're going to go through growing pains.
Yeah.
You know, we have episodes early on where we maybe had like 15 downloads, 15 views, YouTube. So like 15 views, you know, in the early day. I mean, started out with high numbers because people didn't know what this was. People wanted to check it out and see what it was. We started with good numbers. It went down after that because quite frankly, back then the shows were bad. We were just starting. We didn't know what this show was yet.
Yeah. And I mean, the team was going through some growing pains too. Yeah. So, you know,
but yeah, it was, you know, and you just kind of have to come to expect that you're going to hit moments like that. And that's kind of where you find out if this is something you truly want to do or not. Because it's either you give up at that point or you soldier on. We've soldiered on. And I mean, we're not breaking records with the numbers we get, but if you would have told me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you know, what we have now, if you would have told me that back then, I wouldn't have believed it. And it's, you know, so it's just, you know, you're going to have those growing pains. And, you know, if it's something you truly want to do and something you truly want to talk about, you just kind of got to work your way through it.
Yeah.
And, you make it through those points. And at the same time, like Dan said, you're going back, you listen, you learn what worked, what didn't work.
And don't be afraid if something isn't working to do it differently.
I mean, we're 6 years into this. We change stuff up all the time because something doesn't work.
It worked before and it stopped working.
Yeah.
Change it.
Yeah. All right. So the last question we got here, I think a lot of listeners like hearing you guys talk about non-hockey stuff once in a while. And who elected you the person to make that decision? I'm just kidding. With that being said, are you more of a Marvel fan or a DC fan? And I'm going to preface this right away by saying I'm not a comic book person. I never have been. The other part of this is if any of us say anything incorrect about anything that has to do with Marvel or DC and you decide to let us know about it, we will be ignoring it. Because one of the things we will not be doing is a Marvel or DC podcast in the future. So,
yeah.
No, I'm more of an anime guy. So,
I mean, unless we're debating like the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks.
Oh, that's a good one.
There's no debate.
Yeah, for me, coming at it from a movie sense, I mean, the first superhero movies I ever saw were the Michael Keaton Batmans, which I still love to this day. But yeah, other than that, I'd say like full on. I have a couple things I need to catch up on. I've pretty much seen everything as far as the MCU is concerned. I'd say I'm full in Marvel.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think most people comic book people think DC comics are better than Marvel, but I love Marvel movies. And I'm going to go into the weeds here for a second. My favorite superhero is the Silver Surfer. I love, he's a Omega level mutant. His story is he started out as looking for plants to get for Galactus. He's a world eater, and he became good when he got to Earth and liked the people of Earth. And he changed and double crossed Galactus on that. So Silver Surfer is my absolute favorite Marvel hero, and that's about as deep as I can get into any of that.
I'm more of an IDW comics guy, like the Max. I guess, I'll go Marvel only because, Batman's the actually only thing I like about the DC universe other than Scooby-Doo. Look it up.
That's why you brought that up earlier.
Yeah.
Well, technically, I think the Max is now part of DC due to sell-offs, but IDW still has Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which they'll whore off to anything. Again, Goku would kill them all.
Alrighty, so as always, guys, thank you for the questions. Kind of went in a different direction this week. That was kind of interesting from what we typically get.
Keep them coming.
Yep. All right, so that is going to about do it for this episode. We're going to step aside one more time, and we'll preview next week's show and wrap this one up when we come back. So keep it here one more time with the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
We're back, and that will do it for this edition of the Dump and Chase podcast. A massive thanks to Phantoms co-general manager Jason Deskins for hanging out with us for a few minutes. And of course, as always, to all of you listening in this week, thank you for hanging in there with us for yet again another week. So coming up on next week's episode, we will be recapping these 2 games with Tri-City and previewing 2 games with the Phantoms returning to the Covelli Center in what can be a slightly interesting matchup, a meeting at the Covelli Center with the 2 most recent Clark Cup champions. So you can catch this show every Thursday at 5 p.m. on Western Reserve Radio, on Western Reserve Radio's various outlets, including the iMedia One Network Facebook page and the Youngstown Phantoms Facebook page. You can also hear this show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever it is you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can find us on social media on Facebook and Instagram. So before we get out of here, to my co-hosts, Justin Irwin and Dan Conley, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I have a question for you two. In light of what happened in Friday's game, as a goalie in the USHL, you can bring on an e-bug, an emergency goalie, in case something happens. Now we had a referee take a spill and didn't come back in the game. Let's say, but we had 4 referees in that game. What if we had 3? What happens if you have 3 and someone gets hurt? Do you just have 1 linesman and 1 official, or
yes?
Do you have? What if you go past? Is there somebody else in the stands that is there as an emergency referee?
Think probably they do like on an airplane. Is there a doctor on board? Hey, are there any USA sanctioned referees in the house? If not, then the game is postponed.
Okay.
I'm going to say no, just because I've seen NHL games where a referee or a linesman gets hurt, leaves the ice, and they don't have somebody to fill in. So I'm going to imagine if it's that way at the NHL level. I think it would be safe to assume it'd be the same at the USHL level.
Okay.
I mean, good question.
Yeah, I was just wondering that. That'd be imagine a game getting canceled because referees are hurt.
We're gonna put you out there, Dan.
Okay. And we wish him the best. Hopefully it was just a minor injury.
All right. So as always, hockey is a sport played on ice with sticks and a puck, and our podcast is a thing you just listen to. See ya.
Imagine me on the ice as a referee. I'd be looking at the ice, make sure I stay on my feet. Wouldn't see anything about the game.
Youngstown, Warren, and Salem Sports Talk is on the iMedia One Network, Western Reserve Radio, Western Reserve Radio 2, and City View Sportscast.
On the next A Numbers Game, it is Friday, day 2 of the first round of March Madness. The round of 64 continues. We got Chris Malika with all of his plays, the Bear from Fox Sports, plus Steve Fezzik in the hizzy with all of his college basketball and betting thoughts, college basketball and beyond, plus Jason Weingarten, the newly engaged from under a cloud of smoke, what he's betting today, college basketball wall to wall, and some tennis picks too. It's A Numbers Game, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, right here at VSiN.
This is Sharp Week on VSiN, the sports betting network. VSiN, the sports betting network.
Always follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Welcome in. We're live, day 1 of the madness, downtown Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. It's Sharp Week here on VSiN. Mitch Moss, Paulie Howard with you. A couple of game resets to begin the hour. BYU 70, VCU 55, under 5 to play in that game. And the updated total is 144.5. Georgia, Gonzaga, the Zags lead 56-34. That's not quite at the under 16 timeout yet in the second half. Coming up this hour, In Pocket plays in 15 minutes. Bottom of the hour, Derek Stevens, CEO, owner of this great property, along with Private Plane Wayne. You've called it a top 5 gambling story you've ever heard.
As Mike Palm has as well. And Wayne is feeling pretty good. At the cabana at the pool, hit a hand pay earlier on that Wolf game. So I tell the story best when I have a couple in me, he says. So I'm excited. This is like when someone watches Game of Thrones for the first time. You're excited for them. And he's going to bring the heat when he comes in as well. The other thing, too, is I'm not splitting the atom here, but this is going to be a road game for Wisconsin. If BYU hang. I mean, there's BYU Nation here, and I'll tell you,